In this video, you're going to be able to slice your work wherever it matters to you. Think about what you already know about each case that comes in: who requested it, what priority it has, who's handling it, and when it's due. That information helps you handle each case, but it also helps answer the key questions leadership asks. What type of work is taking up our time? Which tasks are recurring? Which ones should we build differently? To answer those questions, we need one more thing: classification. Classifying properly isn't just about writing a word in the title, because no one can actually count that later. What you can count has a name here inside Qamaq. It's called dimensions. A dimension is a classification axis, a question you ask about each case, with a closed list of possible answers. The important part is where it lives. It doesn't live inside a single service, it lives in your account. You define it once and attach it to any service that needs it. If tomorrow another service needs to be classified by the same criteria, you don't have to create it again. That's why they are dimensions, not loose tags. A tag is written by each person however they want. A dimension has fixed answers, which is why you can filter, count, and compare with it. In this office, the key question is obvious. What type of contract is it? A standard confidentiality agreement that can be resolved in an afternoon is not the same as reviewing a master contract, which can take days and may need to go through a partner. So we're going to create that dimension, attach it to the service, and by the end of this video, you'll be able to look at the board and keep only one type of contract. Dimensions have their own screen, which you can access from the services list with the Dimensions button in the top right corner. It's empty because this office hasn't classified anything yet. Let's create a new one using the New Dimension button. The window itself explains that this is a reusable axis whose values can later be attached to any service. First, enter the name. Notice the examples it suggests: client type, size, category. These are axes, not specific items. In this case, we'll call it contract type. Below, you'll find the parent dimension field. For now, it only has one option, because this is your first dimension, and there are no others to attach it to. However, this becomes useful later on. Once you have several dimensions, you can make one axis depend on another, defining categories and subcategories so that the subtype only shows the options that correspond to the type you selected. This example is a top-level dimension. And now, the values. This is what you are really building: the list that appears to whoever opens a ticket, so they can choose one option, and only one. If something isn't on the list, it cannot be selected. It may sound like a limitation, but it's exactly the opposite. It's precisely what makes it measurable later on. Next, we add the first code field. We intentionally leave it empty. It's generated automatically when you save. Based on the name, the code becomes the value's internal identity, and the screen itself warns you that it can never be changed. You can rename what's displayed, but the code remains the same, ensuring that anything already classified doesn't break. Below that is the display name, the label people actually see, and you can have it in several languages. Next, we need to have these available in multiple languages. We write the labels in each language. For example, we enter the non-disclosure agreement, and then the other three follow the same pattern. MSA, the master contract that governs an entire relationship. Employment, for labor-related matters. And vendor, for suppliers. That gives us 4 values. Be careful with the temptation to add 20 options, because if your list is so long that no one reads it through, users will end up guessing. With that same row, 2 more things remain: the aliases, which are another way of naming a value and are used when the classification is done by the AI rather than by you, and an order number that is set automatically based on the values added, which does not need to be modified. Let's save. And you now have your first dimension. We need to tell the service to use this dimension because creating it doesn't activate it anywhere. And that's by design. The catalog belongs to the account, and each service chooses which dimensions apply to it. You pick only what's useful for that specific service. Let's go back to the service list. From the 3-dot menu on our service, select View Service. Inside Contract Review, scroll down to the Dimensions block, which currently shows no dimensions assigned, and click Add Dimension. At the top, the catalog displays contract type, and below it, you'll find what really matters, because this is where you decide how that dimension behaves within this specific service, and not the others. The first option, Required on every ticket. With this, you declare that this service should never be left without a type assigned. We'll turn it on because that's the intent you want to enforce. If classification isn't mandatory, half of the tickets get filled in, and the other half go unmeasured. The next option, Filterable in board. This determines whether this axis shows up in the board filter or not. If you turn it off, you can still classify tickets, but you won't be able to use that classification to narrow your view down to a single category. It comes on by default, and we leave it that way. The other two options have a note indicating they are not yet implemented, so for now, nothing changes on that front, but they tell you where this is heading. Routable would route the case by its type, so an employment contract doesn't land in the same place as a vendor one. And Effects SLA would let you commit to different times depending on the type, because reviewing a non-disclosure agreement isn't the same as reviewing a master contract. We'll leave the Auto Classify from field empty. This option is used when the case isn't created by someone on your team, but instead comes in from an external system. Qamaq compares the incoming value with your defined values and their aliases. It then classifies the ticket automatically upon creation, without anyone needing to select anything. We'll leave it empty because in this case, we classify manually. And finally, the value subset. You can use all 4 values or keep only some of them. This way, the same dimension can serve different services that don't handle exactly the same cases without duplicating anything. In our case, we'll use all of them. And we save using the Save button. The summary card of your selections will then be attached, displaying the dimension name, the labels you activated, the values it offers, and whether they are currently active. Using the icons on the right, you can either edit it or remove it from this service. Be careful with the last option, because it only removes the dimension from this service, but it remains in the catalog, and other services will still keep it. Now we go to the level board, where the cases are, and we open the one we already had. To classify it, click Edit at the top of the ticket, and there, scrolling down a bit, just below Channel Reference, a section called Dimensions appears with our axis inside. No one added it by hand. It's there because the service uses that axis, and that's why it shows up on every ticket on this board, even the ones that aren't classified yet. In this case, we had a confidentiality agreement, so we select NDA and save. Notice what just happened, because it's more significant than it appears. Until now, the only thing that said this case was an NDA, was the title typed by hand. Now a field says it, with a value chosen from a list. And a field can be counted. A handwritten sentence can't. We close the ticket and stay on the board, because this is where you see what all of that was for. At the top, you'll find the filter. We open it, and it brings several sections that come out of the box. By assignee, by priority, by SLA status, and among them, yours. Contract type, which didn't come with Qamaq. You invented it 2 minutes ago. We select NDA and apply. The board keeps only the cases of that type, and ours is still there because it's one of them. And now we ask for a type this case doesn't have. We select MSA and unselect NDA. We apply the filter and the ticket disappears. Nothing was deleted. It just doesn't match what you ask the board for anymore. We remove the filter and it comes back. And you can go finer. Selecting 2 values within one dimension shows you both. But if you filter by 2 different dimensions, the tickets must meet both conditions. In other words, values add up within a single dimension and narrow down across multiple dimensions. That's what proper classification means. It's not just about attaching a nice label to your work. It's about being able to ask the board questions and have it answer you.